I'm a project manager for VMP Group, and today we're just going to talk a little bit about setting up an e-commerce website. So we'll be discussing topics like the moving parts of a website, how to update content, why analytics are important, and how to build an effective e-commerce solution. So we'll walk through some of the steps of building a Shopify website when that part comes up. So before we get into e-commerce, let's take a look at the key components in setting up a standard website. Important first step, a domain name is an essential part of having any website. It's technically an identification string that identifies your website's location. Now, a bit later on, we'll be talking about e-commerce websites specifically, and many of the e-commerce web builders out there provide automatic subdomains as soon as you sign up. So if you sign up, say, for example, my store was example.com. After you enter your username, these stores, like Shopify, will automatically assign you a subdomain of username.example.com. We recommend that you establish your own domain for your website, something that is representative of you and your business, and something that is easy to remember and not too long. In order to secure a domain, it needs to be registered with a domain registrar, like GoDaddy or register.com, for instance. All-in-one services like Shopify, Squarespace, and Wix also provide custom domains as part of their paid tiers. When you're ready to register your domain, first you'll need to determine if the name is still available. If it's not, most registrars will offer similar alternatives until you find something that you like. But once it's registered, it's yours. You can also have multiple domains that you can forward to your main website, so you don't need to have just one. Finally, in addition to the usual extensions like .org, .com, and .ca, there are many other options for domain extensions. They're called TLDs, top-level domains. For instance, there's .art, .clothing, .fashion, .gifs, and many more. The list goes on and on. So to launch your website, you'll also need a hosting service to store your files and content so they can be accessed on the internet. Most domains are purchased through a registrar that is completely separate from your web hosting provider. However, again, services like Shopify, Wix, and Squarespace offer everything you need all in one place. Again, in my years of doing this, people often get confused regarding the difference between a domain and a host. Why do I need both? If I have a domain, why do I need a web host? Well, just very briefly, without a host, the files that comprise your websites, the HTML code, the images, your databases, everything, they'd have no way of being viewed online. Every website you've ever visited is hosted on a server somewhere. If your domain registrar is through a different service than your web host, which is likely the case, you'll need to point it to your website. You do this by telling the domain where your website is being hosted. We also recommend domain-based emails. So, if my domain was mydomain.com, my domain-based email would be kevin@mydomain.com. It helps with maintaining your brand identity and is typically more professional. This also requires a configuration to your domain. So to quickly summarize on that, the host is the physical computer where all the files that make up your website actually reside. The domain, it's just an easy to remember name like mysite.com, and it directs the visitor to the server that's hosting your website. Okay, so once you have your domain and hosting established, it's a very good practice to make them secure before you ultimately launch and go public. Websites are secured with what's called an SSL certificate. These certificates encrypt information that gets submitted to your website. Obviously, these are a must for e-commerce when you have customers submitting credit card transactions across the web. But they're also important if you're just collecting information from the public, like email forms or registration pages. When the certificate is installed on your server, it activates, the little padlock that you see in the address bar, and it activates the secure HTTPS protocol. Although originally intended for secure connections, they're becoming a recognized standard with any website, and they'll also boost your SEO rankings with search engines like Google and Bing. When scoping out the layout of your website and its content, you'll want to first develop a navigation scheme that is simple yet logical, user-friendly, and easy to follow. This should be mapped out before any real design work begins in the form of a schematic or a flow diagram. Make sure that your information is found quickly and easily by all visitors to your site. Our design philosophy at BMP is that websites should always be easy to navigate, and the user should never be more than 2 clicks away from the information that they're seeking. Okay, so you're happy with your navigation plan for organizing your content. Now let's consider the website's visual design and layout. Before moving directly into graphic design, it may be a good idea to develop some rough wireframes first. This will help you to conceptualize the layout of where each of the website components will appear, particularly with the homepage. These components, they include things like your banners, your carousels, menus, your hero images, things of that nature. This is always a good practice. You should get into doing this before the specifics of the visuals. When designing your website, and this is especially true when you're when you're not building from themes or templates, but when you are using templates, the principles do still apply. Use a design that effectively complements your brand and visual identity, but without getting in the way of the site's core purpose. Your process should implement both creative and leading design practices. For instance, as part of a modern website design practice, our team develops websites to adapt to multiple screen sizes, and this is to accommodate for tablet and mobile browsing. And we've adopted this as a design standard. So in our live demonstration later this morning, we'll be using a website builder, which utilizes a design template. But keep the same principles in mind when you're choosing your theme to complement your brand. So last week, I know Sean talked about defining our buyer personas. This is done to effectively target ads and content that's relevant and tailored specifically to the buyer groups that will be interested in what we have to sell. This is part of content marketing, which will be covered in an upcoming session. And we'll be talking about things like brand consistency, the importance of blogs, and content sharing. Typically, when you create new content, it will get most of its traffic within the first 2 to 3 days of publishing. Updating your content can also result in better search rankings, more links, more traffic, social shares, and in the case of an e-commerce website, new customers. Okay, so again, we have a whole session dedicated to social media coming up in a few weeks, but I want to briefly mention that incorporating social media into your website can help increase the awareness of your content. Provide your visitors with the opportunity to share your content easily. Social share buttons can be readily and easily added to any website and include social media outlets like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, if we're talking about sharing video content, depending on whatever channels you subscribe to. When you launch your website, you'll want to ensure that it gets the highest search rankings possible. Standard practices include things like keyword strategy. When writing your content, be sure that it's relevant to your website and employ appropriate keywords within your content. Think about the terms that you suspect your potential customers might be searching for, and then do some research into the keywords that are being used most often to find similar websites. Then create content around the terms that you know your customers are looking for. A leading practice is to focus each section of your content on a different keyword, and try not to overuse the word because, believe it or not, you may end up competing with your own content for search rankings. Metadata is invisible data that provides information about your page to search engines like Google. Metadata includes things like title tags, which are the titles that appear at the top of your Google search results. The meta descriptions, which are the little snippets that display underneath. Header tags help your search engines understand your main topic on each page. And image alt tags, which explain to Google what the image represents. Alt tags also display text descriptions when the images don't load, and screen readers can provide audio descriptions of your images for the visually impaired. Tags like these form the foundation of many accessibility standards. Without metadata, you lower your relevance to search engines, which lowers your rankings and potentially reduces the number of potential customers that find your site. Link building is the practice of building backlinks to your website with the goal of improving search engine visibility. Google looks at how many people link to your page to determine the quality of that web page. Some good link building strategies include content marketing, resource page link building, where you literally link out to a page of relevant, appropriate links, and getting listed on other sites and sources that link back to your site. And there's many little tricks to doing that. Broken links are not only frustrating to your visitors, they make your website look bad, and they can also harm your rankings with Google. If you've encountered a 404 error page on a website, that means that the page is no longer available at the link's location. 404 errors on your site can adversely affect your rankings. A good practice is to periodically check for broken links on your site. There are many online link checkers that can help find broken links for you, such as the aptly named brokenlinkcheck.com and deadlinkchecker.com. There's a web standards council called W3C that helps establish standards for developing websites. These standards ensure that a website is consistently presented across multiple browsers and devices, and that they are as accessible to as many viewers as possible. Meeting these standards will have a positive effect on your search engine rankings. There are various online tools to check that your website is using valid standards compliant coding. A couple of examples of those are validator.w3.org and Jigsaw, which is jigsaw.w3.org. This is to name just a couple. So typically what you would do is you enter your website address into the tool, and then the site will scan for any issues. There are also more robust services for download, like CSS HTML Validator. So last week, Sean had asked a question if many of you were using or had used Google Analytics, and for the most part, it looked like it was being underutilized. Google Analytics is a great tool for analyzing traffic to and from your website, and can also provide other useful metrics as well. And these can help you see where improvements may be needed. Just a few of the insights that can be determined from Google Analytics include the number of visitors to your site, where they're from, which devices your site is being viewed on, which websites or search engines are referring visitors to your site, how many visitors became valid leads or conversions, and the pages or modules that led them into being the conversion, and the list goes on and on. So it's really important that we install and use Google Analytics once we have our site up and running. It's fairly easy to install. You simply sign up for a free account, and you register your domain with that account. You set up your property by answering a series of questions that'll appear on the screen. Very, very simple. And then when you do all that, Google will give you a tracking ID, which is basically a little snippet of code that you can install on your site. Services like Wix, Squarespace, and Shopify have a built-in process for adding your Google Analytics tracking ID, and I can show you that later with Shopify. If your site is custom built, you may need a developer to carry out the code installation. So just keep that in mind. By analyzing your website's traffic, we can determine many things: what's working and what's not working, which pages and features are the most popular, which pages are receiving high bounce rates. Bounce rates are where people are on the page and they don't have any interaction, they leave your site. Yeah, so this information can help us make many necessary changes to our content or landing page strategies to improve the quantity and the quality of our website visits. So what I mean by that is not only can we get more people visiting our site, but we may get them to stay longer, become more engaged with the content that they're interested in, and in turn, those visitors may become our leads. And in the case of e-commerce websites, those leads can be converted into sales. Okay, so here's a little screen capture of a website. And this is the Google Analytics panel that one would see if they're going to and check their traffic statistics. So we could spend an entire day on this, but I just wanted to give you an extremely brief peek into Google Analytics dashboard. Once you choose your time range, it's not pictured in the screen capture, but you go up to the top and you just go back and you say, I want to look at statistics for this website. You can go back a day, you can go back a week, you can go back a month. You can go back one particular day. And once you choose that time range, you can start looking at a lot of data about your website for that given time range. So down the left, you see these are some of the main links here. So you have real-time, audience, acquisition. This is your actual behavior here. I'm just going to go over some of these very, very briefly. So real-time gives you a picture of who's on your site right now. Audience gives you a picture of your demographics, like age and gender, where they're from geographically, how many are new versus returning, and the browsers and the devices that they use to access your website. Your acquisition, this is where you'll find your referrals. In other words, what sources or websites refer to visitor to find your website. And if you are running a Google ad campaigns, it's up in a later discussion, all the statistical information directly attributed to that ad can be found here. Okay, so under the behavior tab, there's a lot of things. It's general overview, behavior flow. The main thing you're probably going to want to look at here is your site content. So we'll just take a look at that specifically for now. So running across the top from behavior, you have, just to mention too, of course, as you can see, I blotted out the actual pages here because it's confidential and I don't want people to see that. But this is the listing of your top pages here. It's probably like the top 10 and the graphics cut off and you see 6. But running across the top is all the information you'll see for these pages. So you have your page. I'm going to skip that for now. You have your page views, your unique page views, the average time spent on the page, entrances, bounce rates, and percent exit. And maybe some of those are obvious and maybe some of those are not. I'll just explain some of those a bit. The page is visited, and they're listed by the URI. Now, the URI is the portion of the page's URL following the domain name. For example, the URI portion of example.com/contact.html is contact.html. That's the URI portion. So that's what this is here. So this is obviously, in that case, that would be your contact page. So page views are the total number of pages viewed. Repeated views of a single page are counted. So that's sort of like a grand total. Unique page views, a little bit self-explanatory. Those are the number of sessions during which a specified page was viewed at least once and only once. So the average time on page, the average time spent by users viewing a specified page or screen or set of pages in screen. Okay, so the entrances right here. These are the number of times visitors entered your site through a specified page. The bounce rates, we talked about that 2 seconds ago. So this is the percentage of high page sessions in which there was no interaction with the page. Similarly, percent exit is how often users exited from that page. Now it's similar to a bounce rate, and people can get them confused sometimes. But with a percent exit, it doesn't necessarily mean they didn't have any interaction there. They may have been there, but it was the last page they were on before they left and moved on to something else. And maybe it was just a link that they clicked to take them to another place. The bounce rate is a little bit more of a concern. The bounce rate, if they're on there, they were done and nothing happened. So if you just kind of look at some of these numbers, again, I kind of blotted these out, but say that was contact, for example. We know that 167 people viewed contact and counted the page title and the hit. 136 of those were unique views. They spent about 5 seconds on the page. There were 134 entrances. The bounce rate is kind of high for this one, is 75%. And although it's not the exact same thing, 74% of those people exited at this point, but there wasn't necessarily a bounce rate in that case. So the last little trick I want to show you is just above page. You see, you can have your secondary dimension, and so this can be anything. So your secondary dimension can be your referral. So you can say the number one page was the contact page, and it was referred by Google search engine. Or you can go by page title. So the page is contact.html. The page title was contact us. So you can sort by the page title if that's helpful to you. I just sort of arbitrarily chose the audience parameter of gender. So not only do we know that there was 167 views of this page, but the 167 people who viewed those page were female. 119 males view the second page, and so on and so forth. So again, we could spend all day on this topic. We could spend all day talking about Google Analytics, but this is just a very, very quick overview to show you how useful analytics can be. In this section of our discussion, we'll talk more specifically about the basic elements of an e-commerce website. E-commerce has become a great way to sell your creations directly to your niche audiences, and research is one of the first necessary steps in planning your e-commerce space. So if we're opening a brick and mortar store, you'd be considering things like location, types of products you're going to be selling, and your target audience. You'd also be considering a theme for your physical store, something that reflects you, your brand, and your creations. So for example, if you're visiting Cape Breton and you walk into a little gift shop, all of the decorative surroundings and the items for sale would have a Cape Breton theme to them. Well, it's exactly the same with an online store. So let's assume, for the purpose of our demonstration here, that we're not going to be doing any drop shipping, that we're talking specifically about our own creations, which we have on hand and are ready to sell. You want to consider a basic inventory management strategy at this point. Even starting out small, we need to think about things like how we're going to organize our products into collections, variants in our products, sizes, colors, and other options, and things like assigning SKUs. That's the stock keeping numbers. You'll want to take good quality photos of your creations. Ideally, an SLR camera will give you the best results to help you put the main focus on the image that you're taking, and it'll soften up the background. But if you're in a pinch, today's smartphones can also take really great photos. Lighting and composition are important. Light boxes are an inexpensive tool that can help provide even light on objects. So depending on your product, Multiple photos from different angles may be important, such as in the case of if you're selling clothing or sculptures. So we'll talk about photography in greater detail in next week's session. We're going to take a moment now and look at some of the e-commerce platform examples. So Wix is a very simple e-commerce and website builder because you can drag and drop your items directly into the Wix template. It comes complete with SEO features that help to drive traffic to your site immediately. Wix provides free built-in hosting and advertising. It offers free SSL certificates to account holders. That's pretty cool. It just needs to be implemented by the user, and you can add your own domain. It should be noted, however, that Wix does not easily allow you to change your design theme once you've gotten started. Squarespace is a website builder like Wix, but it also offers e-commerce plans and an excellent selection of modern templates. Like many e-commerce builders, Squarespace is very user-friendly, so you don't need to be technical savvy with Squarespace, same as with Wix. But it can accommodate users of all technical skill levels. Squarespace, however, doesn't offer as many features, tools, or add-ons as some of its competitors in the market. Woocommerce, you've probably heard of WordPress. WordPress is one of the most popular website management tools on the internet. For sites using WordPress, Woocommerce is the most commonly used e-commerce companion to start selling on your existing WordPress site. The WordPress plugin is free to download, and it comes with a full range of e-commerce features either already included or available through additional add-ons. Shopify is one of the most popular e-commerce platforms available, and it's the one that we're going to use for our little sample walkthrough later on. It contains all of the components you need to start building your store online in one-stop shop. Extremely easy to use, which we'll see in just a moment. And it offers plenty of customization options and a variety of add-ons. So once you've decided on a platform, the first official step is to follow the sign-up procedure, choose your platform plan, and so forth. We'll look at all that in just a minute using the Shopify model as our example. Most platforms offer numerous themes and templates, most of which are tailored specifically to a certain type of business, but you can customize them. They can often be tweaked to more closely fit your brand, and you may or may not have something very, very specific in mind when you're doing that. But either way, you'll want to browse the available templates to find the one that you feel best suits your brand and your type of business. Now, we'll assume at this point you've prepared your products, you've taken all the photos, you've determined the prices, etc. Now we're ready to start populating the website with photos and descriptions of our pre-categorized work. You'll also want to set up any shipping calculators, return policies, and other information that may be relevant to your business. I did a little bit of online research and put together some success stories that I felt were relevant to both what we had talked about today, namely web and e-commerce selling, and also directly applicable to the arts and crafts sector. So let's take a look at a few examples of artists who found success selling their products using e-commerce and what it is they're doing specifically. Now, again, there's lots of different e-commerce platforms to choose from out there, but regardless of the platform, the principles of what makes a successful online shop are essentially the same. An intuitive, easy to navigate website, consistent and cohesive branding, and a professional appearance. Okay, so the first example, Amy Tuan. So what Amy does is Amy leaves up images of sold artwork with an icon indicating that they've been spoken for. This is a really effective, it's an effective strategy in invoking a sense of scarcity and a fear of missing out on the product. And it's done without being too dramatic. So by showing potential customers that she's already sold many pieces, she's inspiring confidence in her buyers. Amy built her site on WordPress, which utilizes the Woocommerce plugin for online sales. Emily Jeffords. Emily's site features multiple shop tabs at the top, including art, gifts, originals, and prints. This is helpful for both browsing customers and those who know exactly what they want. When visitors hover over an image, the site shows an alternative perspective for each piece. So the price is shown on each item, and there is no clicking therefore necessary. If you do click through to a piece, however, as demonstrated in the screen capture you see before you, it shows multiple images of the product, including the piece hanging on a wall, as well as close-ups and views from multiple angles. So this is a really good idea. So by providing customers as much visual information about the piece as possible, you can help increase their confidence in buying. Emily built her site on Squarespace. Matt LeBlanc, not the actor from Friends, this is a different Matt. Matt sells art at a wide range of price points for every type of collector. So when you mouse over Shop Originals, you can choose the price range that you'd like to see. There's also a separate tab for accessories. Items that are on sale are specifically marked, and items that are sold out are also marked, which increases the sense of scarcity. So the prices shown beneath each item are made obvious. And when an item is on sale, the price is slashed to indicate that a good deal is being offered to the buyer. Now, there weren't any of those slashed items currently available on the website when I took the screen capture, so I can't show you that, but we can show you a little bit later on when we look at Shopify. So drawing attention to the sale prices and making it easy for customers to budget their buying is a good sales strategy once your business is established. And as I just mentioned, Matt is using Shopify for his site. Okay, Larchwood, Canada. Larchwood, Canada is a local example of talented craftsmen located right here in Cape Breton in Margaree, Nova Scotia. And they began in 2003 by making flooring products. Knowing that their end grain boards were superior to alternative, cheaper designs, excuse me, they decided to craft and grain kitchen cutting boards in a variety of sizes and styles. So what they did was they gave the first prototype boards to local chefs who used them for approximately 6 months, and then they gave their craftsmanship 2 thumbs up for the quality. The chefs, I mean, gave their approval on the quality. From there, they moved on to other quality products, and then they started selling in Halifax, and they soon expanded into Montreal, Toronto, and the US. So selling online was a no-brainer for these guys. So they established an e-commerce website. So Larchwood, Canada, they make use of their e-commerce inventory management for convenient sorting and filtering of the Larchwood product line, including multiple views of their products. And they use a rating system to give customers confidence in the quality of the products being sold. Larchwood, Canada built their site using WordPress and WooCommerce.